What's going on, guys? Welcome to Ravage Used Cars. You know, it's been a hot minute since we've had one here in the warehouse. Two reasons why we haven't had one. One, we've never had a Pontiac. That's the beauty of ownership. You can smack them and like it rough. And I promise you, it ain't the first time this old girl's been smacked. She's got a salvage title. But first, let me tell you the good before we start getting into all that old bad. 2005 Pontiac GTO 6-liter. Aftermarket heads. More BTR parts than I could tell you about in 20 minutes under the hood inside this 6-liter LS engine. All kinds of trick goodies in the big old 4L60 automatic transmission. All kinds of stuff been done to the rear end. I could bore you for days with tech tidbits. Literally, this car has 3 pages of shit that they've piled into this thing. All I see is cha-ching, 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 cha-ching. And I got her just like you see her right here. Jet black, black inside, 74,000 miles. This thing is devilish and sounds just evil. I like it. It's a little sinister. I like my cars a little on the evil side. And this one right here has got a little bit of a shady past. She's got a salvage title. Oh, God forbid. Don't want no wrecked car. I've watched Dateline. I've seen my Carfax. They tell you, these are the devil. It's kind of like my old grandma back in the day. My grandmother, God love her, she's still alive. She's like 90 years old. I love my grandmother to pieces. When she doesn't understand something or something's new, it's the devil. It's evil. It's bad. Everybody thinks that's a salvage car. I remember what my mom and daddy told me. You stay away from old wrecked cars. They also told you stay away from shady used car dealers. And you're here. But welcome to the dark side. You know, I've seen a lot of videos talking about salvage cars. You know, that's always the hot button subject on YouTube in the automotive realm. And this is the thing. It tickles me. Is there's so many people that are telling you about salvage cars that have just started playing with, like they just discovered, like it's something new. And, you know, they explain to you what title brands are. And they tell you this. I'm going to tell you something. The only place I know of that's sold more salvage cars than me and my family over the years is Copart. Literally. Made a damn fine living selling scratch and dent used cars. You got to think about it. Back in the day, you know, car dealers, where you get your cars at is at an auction or trade-ins. And the thing, you know, the thing is with that is, so you only got really 2 places you get cars. So that means that all the cutthroat little car dealers are all fishing in the same pond. You know, and every area's got a few auctions around, and they'll go in there and, you know, pick the best or what they think will sell the best and bring it home. You find the one you can live with and take it to the house. That's a tricky thing because, you know, the car industry's changed over the years. And it's been many years ago, it did another change. When we had our dealership years ago, salvage cars were a great way to have low mileage, late model used cars. Because you got to think about it. The only low mileage used cars were lease cars. Well, all the new car dealerships got all the lease turn-ins. How about all the other car lots? You're buying all the trade-ins they didn't want. And you're buying the trade-ins that other used car lots had. So you're all fishing from the same well. That's the reason the salvage cars, you had the parts guys, you know, the junkyards, and a double handful of dealers that rebuilt wrecks. So you had the opportunity to buy nice low mileage cars that you had to do a little work, but keep in mind you bought them for, you know, way less than retail. Fixed right, they're great cars. They really are. I mean, there's nothing in the world wrong with a salvage title vehicle if it's repaired correctly. And sometimes cars get salvaged for stupid reasons. And I could talk on this subject for days, and I'm not just going to drill into it. But, you know, speaking of a black Pontiac, looking for a car for my first wife, you know, and I'm going to the salvage auction. Stolen recovery, 99 Pontiac Grand Prix GTP, jet black, graphite inside, supercharged 3800 V6, hot ass little cars. The car was literally a year old, stolen recovery. I had to take a gamble. Someone stole the wheels and tires off of it. The car was sitting on its belly. And it was just sitting there, and auctioneers riding around, you know, and you walk with it there. This isn't where you're driving through, because a lot of these bad boys don't roll. I remember it sitting there. Doors were unlocked, no switch, no keys. Digital odometer. All we know that the last title stamp, well, it was bought brand new. So that's not telling us anything. So I wonder how many miles they could have possibly driven in a year. Inside looked clean, brake pedal wasn't rubbed out. It's a gamble. I bought it for $3,800. Called a Chevrolet place, got a key cut by the VIN. We put a set of just steel, like literally spares, to roll it up on roll it up on rollback rather. And set the key in, turned the switch, didn't turn over twice, fired right up. Air was blowing cold, it was summertime. It had 8,000 miles on it. Had a salvage title. I put a nice set of aluminum wheels, 17-inch aluminum wheels on it. My wife drove that car for 2 years, put 20,000 miles on it. And, you know, I had maybe all in less than $5,000 in it. You know, she drove for 2 years, and I sold it for 10 2 years later. And that was a buddy deal. And I doubled my money on it. That's how salvage cars can work for you. And they're not all good. Sometimes there's some hidden demons with salvage cars, and we'll get into that too. There's certain salvage cars you should stay away from. There's some cars that are wrecked that don't need to be fixed. My black S95 Mustang was that perfect example. I was just too damn hard-headed. Thinking back, you know, it ended up being a good car, but I spent a lot of time and a lot of effort because I was just hung up on triple black. I could have probably got one that was in a lot better shape and a lot less work and spent less money, but that was just me. Another one, and I know some guys love them, and I don't understand it, but it's to each their own, is water cars. I've never been a fan of water cars. My dad used to be the world's worst. He would gamble with a water car, and I've seen him knock them out of the park on them, and I've seen him drown in those son of bitches too. Perfect example of a good water car. 97 GMC Z71 he bought, and the only reason it really sticks out in my mind is he actually drove it like it was his daily for a while. He bought it, salvage, water, stamped on the title, South Carolina. That's how it is. That truck was absolutely perfect. Literally, he drove it from the auction, and the only thing it needed was a wash, like a cleanup. And he drove that thing for 2 years. And I swear to you on all things holy, I can't see anywhere where water got close to it. But it had salvage water on the title. Never had any of the weird electronic demons in it, you know, where stuff was flickering or water lines or anything. I mean, it was been sitting outside, looks like, for 2 months. Period. You know, hell, the damn white letters weren't even dirty on it. I mean, it's just dirty. Hell, it wasn't even dirty on the inside. I mean, like, it had paper in the floor that obviously hadn't been wet. So, you know, the floorboard ain't got wet. You know, and someone was cleaning their stuff out of it or whatever. So that was a good water car. And then you have the bad water cars. 97 Lincoln Town Car. That's last year for the square body, small headlight, 4.6 town cars. I know those cars front, back, side to side because I've owned probably 100 of them in my life. Indestructible, can't kill them. You know, virtually it's a big Crown Vic. My dad bought one of those that got very wet. Drained all the fluids out of it. He had one that was rolled over. They pulled everything out of it. Electronics, full interior, headliner, seats, carpet, dash, airbags, gauge cluster, everything. We took all the damage out of it. Fuse box, we changed everything in it. Put it together, car was perfect. It didn't have any weird smells. It was absolutely beautiful, low miles, and the car was almost practically new then. But there was one problem. It shows you how wet this car had been. Every time you shut the door on it, sand would come out. Okay, so like the roof panel is double-sided on a car. So you got the top panel, the pretty part, and then it's got a panel under the bottom of it for reinforcement. Water and sand and like sediment got trapped up in there. So every time you slam the door on it, sand would just pour out on the dash. And it did that for months. Car drove great, rode good, perfect. Just every time you shut the door, there'd be sand on the dash. And I'll be honest with you, it was like that when we sold it. You know, you got to think about all that sand that got trapped up in all those little crooks and crannies. You know, then you got the bad water cars that aren't fixed right. You know, they wash that carpet up, clean the interior in it, fire her up. Well, she runs like a champ. She's perfect. Then all that stuff starts corroding, all those fuses and everything, all the wires, all those little connectors. Next thing you know, your power seats ain't working. Your lights are flickering. You know, your radio cuts in and out. And then it just gets progressively worse. Those are bad water cars. You don't want those because you can't fix those cars because the problem's always going to be there unless you replace everything in it. And today's cars, even then they were bad, but now they're even worse with the electronics that are in them. It's just not worth it to fix them. We had a guy that his big thing was water cars, and to preserve them, to keep them from rusting, he actually dug a lake in the middle of his property, and he would sink the cars back in the water till he got to them to fix them. Because you got to think about it. Put it underwater, it's just like you stop the clock again. You get it out in that air and let it dry out, that's when it starts corroding. Now, obviously, you don't want to leave it there for years, but you know what I'm saying. You know, so water cars are the ones, and then you know people ask me all the time, well, Rob, you know what's the best kind of salvage cars to buy? I mean, everybody's kind of, you got to pick your poison. You know, some guys like blondes, some guys like brunettes, some guys like redheads. For me personally, I always like stolen recoveries. No, that can bite you in the ass too, because you keep in mind, someone stole it. You know that whole expression, drive it like you stole it. Well, usually that's true. You know, sometimes like the Grand Prix, it was a great car. You know, or you might get that one, you know, you get it fired up and something be wrong with it, or hell, the motor might be blown in. Hell, you don't know. I mean, you don't know. You know, usually those are the safer bets, and those are the cars usually bring a little more at auction versus like a wreck. And like I said, and there's nothing wrong with the wreck part of it, you know, like as far as a car with a front end collision. The thing you got to worry about when you start getting, like this car's unitized, putting a car on a frame machine isn't necessarily a bad thing, but like too much of it's really bad because, you know, metal has a memory, but when it's, you know, pushed the wheel into the driver's seat, it ain't gonna remember that far back. They don't go back like it was. A little bump up is one thing, but when it's, you know, really pushed back, that's bad. And, you know, then I had a lot of buddies of mine that love, and now you can't really so much do this, you know, because back then all your airbag sensors were just right here in the front. Now, hell, cars got airbags all the way down through them everywhere. Now, curtain airbags and everything in them, seatbelt bags or seat bags and all that. So everybody loved rear collision, like, you know, cars that got ran into. And hell, they clip them. You know, like my old buddy Mo, just cut them in half. Take two and make one. And those, you know, make nice fixes. But where that could bite you in the butt, and this is a true story, this is right up, just true story. It's two-parter. Mo was the best clip guy in this town. You go to his body shop and there's halves of cars everywhere. Little Iranian dude. And he could literally sew one together like a needle and thread. Just perfect. You know, because a lot of those guys that cut cars in half aren't real graceful. And they got some pretty nasty scars on them, you know, especially under the bottom where you can't hide them. But Mo was that guy, he could sew that thing together and you think, you know, General Motors put it together that way. Mo's biggest problem was he was a great clip guy. And he was a good body man. But his fit and finish and detail work wasn't the best. Like you sent it to him to get roughed in, and then you sent it somewhere else to be finished. And before we learned this fact about Mo, we sent a Cutlass to him. You know, the front wheel drive, the ones that got like the headlights in the front, like the 6 headlights in the front. Good looking car, 4-door, no miles, front wheel drive, had aluminum wheels on it. No, I mean, just no miles, brand new car, bright red Cutlass. I remember it vividly, sitting on the lot. And I mean, this car had like 4,800 miles on it. And it was like literally a year old. And we'd have people come look at it. and they'd drive it and bring it right back and leave. I mean, you couldn't get no one to stay past the test drive on this car. And we had it for a few months. And I said, hell, if I can't sell it, I'm going to drive it. So, you know, we all went out. Me and a few friends went out. Hell, they jumped in the back seat and they pulled the seat belts back. When they pulled the seat belt back, the seat belts out of the little retractors, they were bright red. So instead of me telling them they got hit in the back and they're thinking like maybe I put a trunk lid and a bumper on it. And come to think about it, everybody at the test drove had somebody riding with them in the back. We fixed that problem. Guess what? We sold our Oldsmobile like 2 weeks later. Another funny one, we had another shop, because body shops grow on trees in this town. And back then, everybody was wanting your business. And keep in mind, we were selling, 200-300 cars a year. So it's a lot of wrecks. And we had them scattered in body shops all over town. You had certain guys, like I said, you want to do certain things. Clip guys are hard to come by. Your fender painters, they're everywhere. We had this one good clip guy, and this guy said, man, I can clip cars. So Dad gave him a shot, and he sent a town car to him, like a 97, like I was telling you about the Lincoln town cars. He sent a town car to him. Town car's full frame car. This car was killed in the back. Like, they didn't stop till he hit the back of the front seats. Never touched the brakes, whatever hit it. And I'm 98% sure it was a train. It was murdered. We had one that was killed in the front to use the back clip off of. So they clipped the car. Come out of the body shop, slick as glass, white, navy blue leather interior. Remember it like it was yesterday. Good looking fix. Door shut good, everything's nice. Cut it right inside, no shit. Cut it right inside, literally at the B pillar. And put it together. And I tell you the car dealer trick on clip cars at the back, especially on a Lincoln Town car, you get away with it really easy. Well, this car didn't have a Landau top or a vinyl top on it. It did now. Because you got to think about it. You got that line, you're trying to fix that top, try to get it straight, and get it to look right and make it stay. You can't put a lot of Bondo in it either because that panel flexes. So what do? Send it to the interior shop and have a vinyl top put on it. So it had a navy blue vinyl top on it. This car, it turned out just cute as a button. And I'll never forget, we were picking it up from the body shop and walking around it. And it just looked great. And this guy just knocked it out of the park. Everything was painted, but of course the top, obviously, he just primed it in. And we sent it over to the upholstery shop. And we talk about this car all the time. Every time I say, this is the same guy that does my upholstery work to this day. You remember that Lincoln you brought me with the vinyl top? Yeah, I remember the Lincoln with the vinyl top. And the trick was, he put a vinyl top on it. It turned out absolutely pretty. It actually looked really good on the car. The navy blue vinyl top, navy blue insides on that white car, blue pinstripe, and it had the little chrome fender well trims. I mean, she was classy. She was a nice little town car. We picked it up, and I'll never forget, my dad was driving it, and I was following him. And the car was going down the road like this. And what makes it even worse is when you drove it like through water, like somebody's sprinklers running. You could really tell it because the tracks, it would track like one tire here, one tire here, one tire here, one tire here, going down the damn road. And it wasn't painfully obvious when you were looking at it, but going down the road is when it was. And the car drove fine. It's just dog leg. Needless to say, that one ended up going through the auction, getting got rid of. But and we never used him again for clipping cars. Apparently reading a tape measure is not his strong suit. That's the problem with clipping cars and things like that. And there's also a lot of liability when you start cutting things in half and welding them together. In theory, yes, a weld is just as strong as that piece of metal, but there's still some liability there, and I wouldn't necessarily, I'd jump into the whole clipping car business, especially now. Another car that I like to buy at salvage sales, and they're very popular, especially when times are tough, which blows my mind. I would never understand why this would be popular when the economy is at its worst. Fire cars. Because fire damage cars, 90% of all cars that burn from the inside out. You know what we call that in the business? Payment book caught on fire. It's a common. Just throwing that out there. What I love about a car, especially if it's caught in time, you can remove all the interior out of it. And you can fix that car because you could take the burnt out of it. And sometimes you got to paint the top or put a windshield in it, obviously, or back glass or whatever. But these are all inexpensive things, and you're not cutting this car in half. You're not, doing frame machine or framework. I had a 95 F-150 that was literally toasted on the inside. And the thing that was crazy was the XL. So it was a roll-up window, plain Jane, vinyl seat truck. What do? I go to my local aftermarket parts store. I buy me a chrome grill, chrome front bumper, chrome back bumper for it, XLT emblems from the Ford place. I found an XLT truck that had been hit harder than Joe Frazier in the front. I bought every thread of interior wire and harness, complete dash, everything out of it for $800. Pulled all that stuff out, hit it with a pressure washer on the inside, cleaned the glass real good. It didn't even crack the windshield. Swapped all that out. I had power windows, power door locks, nice cloth seat, with a lumbar in it, because all that stuff was there because we got all the wiring harness for it. XLT dash, I went ahead and put all the XLT stuff, put me a set of those XLT bullet hole aluminum wheels on it, bada boom, bada bing. I had a truck I drove for 5 years that I absolutely loved. That's what I like about fire cars, and I mean, hell, I had a 96 Mustang, same way, burnt inside, and we fixed several over the years. Those cars fix well. The burnt under the hood cars, the fire cars is another big popular thing you see. The only problem with those is they start burning up a lot of stuff. Funny, quick story about that. Going to the wreck sale, and my dad bought a 91 Corvette. My dad loved cars he could fix himself. We have a diesel truck shop, not a body shop. And so, now naturally he didn't do any paint work or body work, but he loved the ones you swapped the interior in, or loved the ones that you could just, fix this. And the car caught on fire. It was a C4 Corvette, it's 91, 6-speed. And on a C4, the computer and the battery is all just right there in that fender well, and the main engine harness. And this thing was smoked. I don't know if the battery exploded, caught fire, whatever. When all this happened, it just melted all those wires. And my dad, to this day, he still buys it. He buys wire in like 100-foot rolls. And these big old rolls. So damn, buy you a harness. This won't be a bad old car, put a battery in it, Ain't buying no damn harness. He goes over on Saturday afternoon, 90 red wires just running. He just cut the burnt, butt connector. Wire loom and electrical tape. Fired right up, run good. Hell, my mother drove it for a little while. Hell, I ended up selling it all for him. We saw this car, 2 months ago at an event we were hosting, an all Corvette show. And the reason the car sticks out is we put C5 wagon wheels on it. So it's white, light gray leather inside, 6-speed, with those wagon wheels on it. And I saw it pull up, and I'm like, it can't be. It can't be. And he opened the hood on it, and it's all cleaned up under the hood. And I look right there under the battery, and you can see just all that wire harness, and it's all taped up still. I'm thinking, and she's still on the road today. I had to call my old man up and tell him, you won't believe this shit. She's still going. Lord knows how many times that car swapped hands. Had a fire salvage title. You know what? Fun Corvette. 15 years later, it's still on the road. That's the thing about salvage cars. The key is fixing them right. A lot of people have put a stigma out there. The Dateline thing. I mean, that was what dried up the car business for my dad right there. 2020 started coming on. They really gave a negative stigma. A few bad apples really ruined the bunch for everybody on salvage cars. But at the end of the day, if you're looking for a good deal on something to drive, not necessarily sell, but to drive, hard to beat. Just like this little 700 horsepower hot rod. Ain't nobody but you, and well, you, if you pay cash for it, would ever know it. Guys, we'll catch you next time at Rabbit's Used Cars. That was so cool. Are you ready? Are you ready? What's going on, guys? This thing literally sounds like the end of the world when you're all the way back. They also told you stay away from shady used car dealers. Looking for a wife or looking for a car, looking for a wife. I sure tell you looking for that.
That battery's been red with the line through it for like 3 minutes. I was like, oh shit, don't stop.